I'm Courtney Cole, and I'm here today for part two of my interview with my son Gunnar for This Is What Addiction Looks Like. Um, since I just wanted to give this little example of how addiction can affect a drug user even well after they stopped using. Um, Gunnar and I filmed those interviews Saturday and Sunday of this week. Today is Friday, and even though he thought he would be okay, talking about the addiction and using triggered his cravings to use, and he's been struggling all week long. Yesterday, his arms from where he used to inject, his arms hurt so bad he could hardly work because his memory, like yesterday I was talking about the hippocampus and the amygdala remembering and filing away where you were, what you do, what you feel like when you use. And yesterday, it was just a good example of how triggers can just pop back up out of nowhere. And it is honestly, I think it is a lifetime struggle. Luckily, Gunnar has learned coping mechanisms. He reached out to me. He called his sponsor. He looked for a source outside of himself to help deal with it. So that is a huge, huge step for an addict. So he did not relapse, which is use. So that was a huge step in the right direction. And it is, as a mom, it gives me so much hope that he has learned those coping mechanisms and that, he used them. So it's fantastic. So this is part two. We're going to be discussing some ugly stuff today. So I'm sorry. I ended up cutting some of the really ugly stuff out because I didn't want to, for very sensitive viewers, I didn't want to upset you, but you'll get the gist. Anyways, here is part two of This Is What Addiction Looks Like.
Hi there, I'm Courtney Cole, and I am here with my son Gunnar in episode 2 of our 3-part series on drug addiction. And we are taking real questions from my readers, and we are hoping to give honest answers to every single one, no matter how hard it might be. So we are ready.
Courtney, how did you realize that your son was using drugs?
I suspected he was using marijuana, and he had me convinced at the time that it was a friend's, and he was holding it for his friend, and it was, looking back, because hindsight's 20/20, looking back, I know now that that was silly that I allowed myself to be convinced like that, but honestly, as a parent, you don't want to see those things. Like, to let yourself believe that's pretty scary. So I think I let myself be convinced that it wasn't his, but I did know early on that he tried marijuana.
Gunnar, what was rock bottom for you? Can you describe your darkest hour?
I was in a trap house, half laying, half sitting on this couch. It was all dirty and nasty, but I had a needle still in my arm because I did a shot. I was already coming down too hard, so it didn't work. So I was just like, whatever, left the needle in my arm like this, I'm just sitting there. And I thought I was coming down so hard off of meth and heroin, I was like, I think this is gonna be how I go out. Something die like this, but and then you have all these fiends going in and out of the house, buying heroin, crack, or meth, or whatever the fuck else they want, And that was probably one of the most rock bottoms I had, because I didn't have anywhere to go, I had no money. All I had was a pocket full of drugs I can trade to other drug users for whatever I needed. It was bad.
Is that the time that you had the broken needles in the other arm?
That's around the same time period when I had a broken needle in the arm.
Okay. Can you tell my readers what a trap house is?
Trap house is, it's just like any other house that's not. It looks like your typical house. It's a house in the neighborhood where a drug dealer lives there. There's constantly traffic with people buying drugs, bringing drugs there. And the cops are always watching it. Most likely it's going to get raided, or it's been raided multiple times. That's a trap house.
Why do you think that was your darkest moment? Because there were lots of times when I know there were many times when you would call me, you didn't want to tell me where you were.
Well, that trap house was darkest time because I remember one of my friends actually died in that house.
Okay, during that time.
Yeah, when we were all there, we all did our shot, and that dude just didn't make it.
So your friend died, and you woke up in the house, and you realized then that was your reality.
We all realized that's reality because we were all awake when he died.
Okay, that's a pretty low point.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Courtney, how did you handle it when Gunnar would lash out at you? My brother was an addict and used to say terrible things to us. It was hardest on my mother.
It is hard. It really was hard for a long time because this is what happens. When an addict becomes really addicted, the only thing that matters to them is getting money to get high again. And so they become really good at getting money. And when you start to realize and you start to say no, they become, I'm saying that in a generalized way, but it just seems to be the case from what I hear about other people too. Gunnar would get very angry and say really terrible things. And I guess I just had to come to the point where I had to realize that really wasn't my son talking, that was the addiction. And the addiction changed him into somebody that he wasn't, and that's how I dealt with it, because I just reminded myself that is not really Gunnar talking to me like that. That is the addiction talking, because that's what drove him every day, was the addiction.
Gunnar, have you relapsed at all? What did you do to get back on track?
I've relapsed a few times since I got sober, but I got back on the horse. I'm doing good now. But if you're really bad in the drugs, you can't get clean and expect to never relapse, never do it again. You just gotta get a good support group. You just gotta do a lot of precautions so you don't relapse again.
Like, stay away from temptation.
Yeah, stay away from bad influences, surround yourself with good, positive people.
Don't go back to the places that you used.
Yeah, hell no, don't ever go back to where you used to get high.
Okay. Courtney, you said that there were times when Gunnar went off the grid and you didn't know where he was or if he was under a bridge. How did you cope during those times?
Well, you know what? Those times were hard. Like when he said that he was in the trap house and that was his darkest hour. I wondered why that particular time, because there was a lot of times when he would call me and tell me that he was sleeping in the park. He was sleeping in an abandoned schoolhouse one time or something, right? But he wouldn't tell me where he was because he knew that, I might call the police and have him pick him up because I was scared, I was worried. He didn't want that, so he purposely stayed off the grid. And because he wanted to use, and he didn't want help at that moment. And that was really hard as a parent, because I was living moment to moment expecting that, I could get a call from maybe the county sheriffs or whatever saying that they found him in a ditch. It was awful. His phone was gone. There was a time when, he lost his car. He had saved money for a long time for this car, and he lost it, and I think you traded it for drugs or something, right?
I don't know.
He doesn't even remember. He doesn't remember what happened to his car.
Either I traded it for drugs, or somebody else traded it for drugs, or.
So he doesn't even know. And it was a new Mustang he'd worked and saved, and it was really important to him, and it was just gone.
Oh, that Mustang?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I sold it, but the guy that I sold it to ripped me off. Because I was supposed to have enough to get more drugs, and there was going to be plenty to get another vehicle, but he only gave me $1,200, and then I was all pissed off. I just got all kinds of drugs with it.
So honestly, it was really hard, because without having word, and he was just gone, So, it was really, really, really hard. So I really I prayed a lot. That in that moment, that's all you can really do is just pray, because you can't save your kid in that moment. If anybody can, it's God. And so that's what I did. I just prayed all the time.
And now, in recovery, how do you protect your heart, knowing that if he relapses, it could all happen again?
It's different now, because even though he has relapsed a couple times, they lasted for a day, And he called me right away and said, he didn't try to hide it, which is, it's really important, because when people are in active addiction, they lie all the time. I mean, like Gunnar he would lie, you know, about using or anything. And when he relapsed, he just told me, and he said, it was terrible, I can't believe I did it. I'm you know, I'm coming down now, but I'm okay, Mom. I'm okay. I'm gonna do this. And so he got right back on the wagon. And I think there's a little part of my heart that knows it's always a possibility that he could go off the rails again. But I think it's a small possibility. He has seen the darkest parts of what addiction can be, and he doesn't want to go back there. So that's what gives me hope.
Gunnar, can you describe addiction in 3 words?
Terrible, disturbing, depressing.
Okay.
Well, humiliating too.
Can you, yesterday when we were talking, you said, I asked you why you found it humiliating, and you said, can you say why?
Yeah, it's humiliating because I used to be popular in school, good at sports, you know, just overall good guy, and then literally right after high school, there I am, needles in my arms, my neck, you know, it's everything. Just that's humiliating. No one wants to be known as that guy doing meth, shooting it in his neck and stuff, you know. Especially heroin, that's terrible.
Courtney, can you describe it in 3 words?
Gut-wrenching, ugly, and empty. It really does empty out all the goodness out of that life. Like Gunnar had no goodness in his life. Like he was hanging on by a thread, you know, like it was just a dark, dark time. I guess that was way more than 3 words, but.
Several different readers sent in a hard question. They've lost loved ones to an addiction, and they don't understand that they hold that addiction has on a person, and why someone would choose it over everything they love in life. They're hoping you can give them some closure on this question. Gunnar, why did you continue to use when you knew each time could be your last? Can you try to explain?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I loved anybody more or less, you know, I loved everybody a lot, but, and I didn't necessarily love that, the drug. It's just, I just couldn't get enough of it. I just had to feel that feeling. I'd rather feel that feeling than be sober. It wasn't anything against anyone else.
I think, okay, so these readers, and several of them did write in and say, you know, I lost my brother, and they can't ask their brother, you know, why would you choose it over me?
Yeah, it's not anything against anybody. It's just when you're an addict and you're an active user, that one time you want to get high, yeah, it can kill you, but you're willing to take that chance because, like, it's like when there's a train coming and you're about to cross the railroad tracks, and the longer you wait to cross the railroad tracks, the train's coming and your heart gets faster. That's what it feels like to use drugs again. That's what it feels like.
That rush,
Yeah, like
the heart pumping.
There's a rush before you get high. There's a rush when you get high.
And when does that rush end?
And that rush ends when you come down. But during all that, you don't think about family or friends or nothing.
No, when you think about high.
Yeah, you think about, man, I'm gonna get high.
And so how do you compartmentalize that? Like in your head, you just shove all those thoughts back, or the other thoughts just take over?
I mean, I'm always thinking about all kinds of bad stuff like that every day.
Still?
Every night, yeah. It doesn't go away.
So what do you do?
Me personally, I look at pictures of my woman, my son, my family, and then I tell myself, come on, man, you don't want to do this again. Like, it's like willpower. You gotta convince yourself you're not gonna do it.
And it's a daily thing.
Yeah, day and night. Nighttime's worse for me.
Because you're still.
Yeah.
Because it's dark and quiet.
I used to use all the time when it was nighttime.
It was hard. I know sometimes I probably look a little bored while I'm talking to my son and asking him these questions. I'm not bored. I'm just trying to kind of keep composure. So this has been episode 2 of What Addiction Looks Like, and soon there will be episode 3, which is recovering, and hopefully will leave you with hope, because there's always hope.